So one of my good friends on YouTube at Lizzie's Literary Life, definitely go subscribe to her, does this thing called TIPSY wrap-ups where she drinks a beverage while doing her reading wrap-up. And it seems like a really good time. And I officially quit my job today to go start a new job. So it seems like an appropriate time to engage in some tipsy wrap-up shenanigans. So I'm gonna do the classic shot and a beer for my inaugural tipsy wrap-up. This shot glass is kind of gross. Alcohol will kill it, right? I think that's slightly more than a shot. Cheers! Been a while since I've taken a shot. Whew! This is gonna be an interesting video. Hi, my name is Adriana and this is my reading wrap-up for the month of August. So as per usual, we will start with some stats. I read a total of 7 books that added up to 1,887 pages read with my eyeballs, 16 hours of audiobook, and an average page length of 377.4 pages for my physical reads / eyeball reads once again. And then my average rating was a 4.1. So 7 books is a little low for me in a month, but 4.1 is actually a really good average rating. So even though I didn't read a lot, I really enjoyed what I read. So I'm calling that a win. So looking at this ratings breakdown, you could see I had 3 5 stars, which is crazy because that's a lot of 5 stars to read in 1 month. But you know, it was my birthday month, so that was the universe gifting me some 5 stars. I had another 4 star, I had a 3.5, I had a couple 3 stars, but you know, nothing below a 3 star, which meant like I enjoyed pretty much everything I read or found some value in everything I read. The format of the books I read, 1 of them was hardback, 4 of them were ebooks, and 2 of them were audiobooks. I sourced 2 of them from the publisher, 4 from the library, and 1 I had bought in the recent months. And then finally, my genre breakdown, kind of all over the place once again. 2 of them were literary fiction, 1 mystery thriller, 1 romance, and 3 fantasy. So before we jump into the book-by-book review, please consider liking and commenting on this video and subscribing to my channel if you like bookish things. So the first book I read in August was Psyche and Eros. This was a NetGalley arc that I had that is a retelling of the Psyche and Eros story from Greek mythology. Eros is the Greek version of Cupid, so when you imagine like god of insta-love, I guess might be his best description, the guy who shoots the arrows, and his love of his immortal life. This book made some interesting changes to the source material. It totally changed the time period in which this story takes place, removing it from like ancient antiquity and moving it to like Trojan War time frame, which I didn't love as a choice and I don't think was like utilized all that well as a choice. I kind of wish the author had just left it in its own time and left Psyche totally removed from the lead up of the Trojan War. It has her be a niece of Agamemnon and interacting with Penelope and Helen and Clytemnestra like as cousins. And I just don't really think it was necessary, and I don't really understand why the author chose to do that other than like Trojan War retellings are really popular, but I don't think it added anything to the story and the themes of the story. So for that reason, even though I like mostly enjoyed what the story was doing, I did end up giving this a 3 stars. But if you do enjoy Trojan War retellings and want to learn about a different myth in Greek mythology, this might be a good insert for you. The next book I read was The Charm Offensive. I read this as a part of the Vlog Squad challenge. Can't remember whose pick this was now, but I will link the vlog where I say whose pick this was. And I loved this book. So if you watched my vlog where I read this book, I read a portion of it on a plane, and it was just such a quick, engaging read. And being on a plane is so miserable. It's just the worst. So having a book that could keep you engaged and in the story and not paying attention to what's going on around you is just so nice. And I just really appreciate that this book was able to do that for me. I guess a synopsis of this book: it takes place around a Bachelor-like show called Once Upon a Time, maybe? Something fairy tale-y. It's like The Bachelor, but with a fairy tale spin. Instead of a bachelor, you have a Prince Charming, and all the dates and stuff kind of have the princess fairy tale vibe to them. So they bring on this new Prince Charming who's this tech genius billionaire to try to like revamp the show, get someone new in there who hasn't been on the show before, and he is not very good at being on the show, as you could imagine a hermit-like tech billionaire to be. And instead of falling in love with any of the women, he falls in love with his producer, which causes all sorts of incredible drama and is just the best. And it's just so wholesome and sweet, and I love it, and I loved this book. This was a 5-star, easy 5-star for me. I was beginning to think that I was out of my romance era, but this just like pulled me right back in, just with like straight to the jugular of just cute and loving and caring, and I just loved it. So yeah, easy 5-star for me. The next book I read as an audiobook, but I have a physical copy of it somewhere, I thought. Did I not grab it? It's in the other room. But that was Idaho by Emily Raskovich, I think is her name. This was actually recommended to me by an in real life friend who recently subscribed to me, so I don't know if she's watching, but if she is, shouts to you. I don't know if you want me calling you out on the internet, but thank you for this recommendation. So I listened to this as an audiobook, and this is it's hard to really describe what this book is. There's not much of a plot. It is more of a... Oh, I got a call incoming. Hold up. Well, I just talked to my dad on the phone for a half hour, so that shot has had ample time to set in. I am feeling it. Where did I put my book? Anyway, it is very hard to describe this book. It takes place over a lifetime, following this woman who marries this man who is experiencing Alzheimer's, dementia, something in there later in his life, and she's kind of having to figure out how to deal with it. There's also this added thing of the man's ex-wife had killed one of their children, and the other child like ran off. So this man was left like childless at a fairly youngish age, and his wife got sent to prison, and it's very strange. It's kind of hard to follow. I probably should have read this physically, but there is a lot of like timeline switching, and there's just a lot going on. Like you can imagine, like, emotionally, our main character, this young woman who moved to northern Idaho from somewhere in the UK. I think she's from the UK, but she moved to northern Idaho because she had like family history there, but no existing family there. It's engaging and it's a lot, and I only listen to this in short spurts because it could be very hard to read at times. But it was really cool to like read a book about northern Idaho, considering I've spent a lot of time in that area. It's very good, and it's very much literary fiction with a capital F. So I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for something a little bit more in depth, a little bit emotional, a little bit heavy, but I would probably read it physically rather than audibly. The next book I read was the Doomsday Key by James Rollins, the sixth book? Yes, sixth book in the Sigma Force series. I have a full vlog on this, so I will link that and you can go check it out. But I had a very good time reading that book. To be fair, I was also, you know, in China and like living my best life and doing the thing. Except for the part where I like destroyed my toe, but whatever, it's fine, we're healed, we're good. But it's a crazy, bombastic James Rollins Sigma Force story. We have a megalomaniac millionaire. We have thermobaric bombs. Like, it's a wild time. And it's a good time. And I gave it 5 stars because, like, why wouldn't I give it 5 stars? Next up is a Dowry of Blood. I read this for the Shelf This Book Club. This was a pick from Danielle, I believe. Hopefully I'm right. I'm pretty sure that was Danielle. Should I check? Should I verify my own thoughts? Yes, Danielle from Danielle Reads. I will have her linked down below. And this was for the Shelf This Book Club hosted by Is Bailey Reading. This was a book I'd heard a lot about on BookTube. Like, I think a year or 2 ago. It follows a wife of an unnamed vampire, which, like, by the end you're like, I'm pretty sure this is Dracula. But this is about his main wife, Constance, I think is her name, and kind of her story through the centuries from being turned into a vampire, experiencing different decades throughout history, eventually incorporating some new vampires into kind of their vampire polyamorous thing. I don't know. It was very like atmospheric and like ethereal. Like, I just kind of felt the whole thing felt like a dream. But again, I listened to this while in China, so I was like 16 hours jet lagged, so that is definitely going to influence my feelings on this book. But this was definitely outside of my comfort zone and not necessarily something I would pick up on my own. And it was very weird and very, I don't know how to describe this. It's very strange. But I could definitely see why some people were obsessed with it, because it is very well written and very well constructed. Just very engaging and gothic, but just not necessarily something that I am built to enjoy. So I think I ended up giving this one three stars, but like, I enjoyed it and I can see why other people really enjoyed it. I'm just not the audience for it. The next book I read was Lilith. This was an arc from NetGalley, and I am obsessed with this book. It is a retelling of the Hebrew mythology of the story of Lilith, the first woman to be married in the biblical sense to Adam, and who got cast out of the Garden of Eden. And just, oh my gosh, this book was so good. Like, this scratched every itch I've ever had for a Greek mythology retelling, but opening me up to like an entirely new mythology, which is just incredible. Like, I've been obsessed with Greek mythology since I was a young child. So kind of, I know all the Greek mythology that they're going to do retellings of. Like, I'm aware. I know where the story's going. I know what the end is. But with Lilith being Hebrew mythology, I am a lot less familiar with that. Like, I have some stuff, like, growing up in a Christian-ish world. And, you know, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina pulls a lot from kind of this Hebrew mythology sort of stuff. So I was somewhat aware of Lilith as a mythical figure, but going into this story was incredible and so much fun. So this book, again, is a retelling of Lilith's story, starting with her in the Garden of Eden with Adam being cast out for not submitting to him, and then kind of her life all the way through to like the modern era. And there's just so much good about this book, following this woman who is figuring out how she can reconcile her spirituality with the religion that has been subjected upon her, creating new spaces for women in like ancient, very patrilineal, not patriotic, patriarchal societies. It's so good. I definitely gave this 5 stars. This was a book that almost feels like purpose-built for me as a human, and I loved every single second of it. The last book I read, I have a physical copy of, but I don't have it on me because I lent it to my mom. But that is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I tore through this book so quickly. Like, I imagine almost everybody knows what this book is, right? Like, R.F. Kuang is a big deal. But it is about this white author who is friends with this very successful Asian American author, and while they're hanging out one night, the Asian American author perishes, and the white author steals her manuscript that she had been working on and publishes it as her own work. And it's very much like a psychological thriller with this white author like trying to dodge and weave all of these accusations of her like potentially stealing this / did she steal it. She's writing like other books, and it is a wild time. And I, like I said, tore through it so quickly. It is so engaging and so much fun to read. But there are definitely some criticisms to be had of this book. I will direct you to Cindy's review of this, because like, as the whitest person on the internet, I can't exactly do a full breakdown of all the criticisms of this book. But something I did want to mention is R.F. Kuang is a huge author, and especially this book I think has been picked up by like the mass media publishing marketing machine behind this book. It's gonna get pushed out to people who look like me, and people who look like me are not always that self-reflective. And so I think having your main character, the white person who stole this manuscript, be so cartoonishly racist can give people who look like me an out of, well, at least I'm not like them. Like, I don't contribute to racist structures the same way as this person does, because they don't even like Chinese food because they think it smells bad. And my initial gut instinct to a lot of the microaggressions and outright racist thoughts that the main character, I think her name is, June, had, my initial instinct was like, oh, whew, I'm not like her. But then I have to like step back and be like, oh, wait. Hold up. Let's like evaluate what this is saying about a general racist structure in society, instead of just me giving myself an out that I'm not like June. So it's not a problem. I guess that's my only real critique of this book, is that because the main character is so cartoonishly racist, it's not necessarily going to hit the way it should for mainstream white audiences. But it doesn't necessarily have to. Like, a lot of this felt like R.F. Kuang's therapy almost. Like, she was releasing a lot of emotion into this book, and that's why it's so engaging and why it's so much fun to read. I would just really encourage anybody who is reading this book to really make sure you are stepping back and doing some self-reflecting and how you are contributing to these issues, even though you are not the main character who is stealing from people of color, is my only hat I would like to hang upon this book. But those are all the books I read in August. I had a great time. Let me know if you have read any of these books and your thoughts and feelings on them, and thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next video.